Good morning, everyone. This is Chris Koropati from Cambrian Lab. Thank you for taking the time to join the session today on digital workflows for SAP Master Data Management Excellence. I will introduce our panelists shortly. This will be about a 1-hour session, and the agenda is broken down into essentially 3 parts. In the beginning, we'll introduce the panelists, give a brief intro about our company. It should take just a few minutes. Following that, we will cover some of the challenges of handling SAP master data based on our experience, and how we can overcome some of these challenges, most of them actually, using a concept of digital workflows. Our esteemed panelist, Ms. Elizabeth Fisher, today will cover the case study of how they used digital workflows to handle not only business processes related to product lifecycle management, but also master data alongside. We will do a short demo, and the last 10 minutes of this hour will be dedicated to Q&A. Okay. In terms of logistics of Zoom webinars, we have an option to provide chat messages as well as ask questions while the session is going on. So on your Zoom bar, the 5th button is Q&A. If you have a question or would like to highlight something, please type in that question or your point in the Q&A so that it's all recorded, and when we send the recording as well as the presentation, you actually have the questions and hopefully the answers as well. You can also, of course, type into the chat bar, but if it is a question, please feel free type it in the Q&A section of the Zoom webinar bar. Okay. With that, we will get into the main session today. We are very, very honored and happy to have Elizabeth Fisher. She's the Director of Engineering at Penguin Edge, part of the Smart Global Holdings Group. I am from Cambrian Lab. I lead product management for our products in workflow management, master data, and other areas. With me is also my colleague, Manish Mathur. He's the VP of Engineering at Cambrian Lab, and between us, we will cover all of these topics and provide as much information as possible within this 1 hour. Okay. A little bit about Cambrian Lab. We are based out of California, but we do have teams in different cities within the US. We generally work with companies in these industries and have quite a bit of experience, operational experience in supply chain, new product introductions, quality management, and also master data management. Some of us came from SAP, so we understand the landscape and the solutions pretty well. In this section, we are going to cover some of the unique aspects of SAP master data that we've found based on our experience and how best to solve that. Of course, everyone knows good SAP master data is critical for operational excellence. One of the things that we always find interesting is that when people think of master data, it generally narrows down to material suppliers, customers, but one of the most important aspects of master data are also the different elements, like costs and pricing and bills of materials and things of that nature. And that is just as important as the core master data itself. And it's, of course, all of that is very, very important for, when you are working with SAP or in terms of real operational impact on the ground. Having good master data is very important. And I think most of the people that have joined the session already know that. But what we have observed about SAP master data is somewhat interesting. For one, we have seen quite a bit of non-value added activity and fairly long cycle times, and it tends to be a very expensive business process, whether it is creating a material, extending a material, creating a customer, and so on. One of the things that is also pretty common is because of the high level of expertise, SAP expertise required, many of the business users, what we call extended stakeholders, are generally out of the loop of handling or working with master data. Another big problem that we have seen is traditional master data management approaches, which is, and we'll cover slightly about that, which is handling it as data loads or typing it in data, master data into the source system, is good for only a limited set of master data domains. You can create some basic information about materials, customers, and so on. However, that is not sufficient and leaves out a lot of different elements and related workflows of improving master data processes. And of course, because of this gaps, what tends to be is everything is very long, and people are a little bit frustrated with some of the master data process experience. Okay, and it's a real obstacle for if you're in operations or NPI or purchasing, right? Having good master data fast. So most definitely, I think the wrong way to approach SAP master data management is as if it's entering data into SAP or loading data into SAP. We see it as a collaborative business process. And where we see, when we talk about significant non-value added activity, long cycle times, and expensive, is when people are preparing or creating or updating master data, there tends to be quite a few stakeholders involved. There is a level of process involved, and each of those things can take time, and there are significant delays, because of lack of coordination, right? Emailing and people waiting for something to be done. So as a result, it is not uncommon to have fairly long, it take to create a material fully usable, ready to be used in purchasing or sales and distribution. It can take up to 20, 25 days. In some cases, even longer. We've seen some started, but after 6 months, it's still not ready. Right? And in addition, people are working with the same data, entering the same data over and again. So there's a lot of real non-value add, checking for errors and making sure all the information is correct. It's all there. So all of that is, if there's a way to simplify that, it's a lot of non-value added activity that can be eliminated. Okay, and of course, when people spend so much time and due to delays, the costs add up. And one of the things that is pretty common here is if you expand your vision of what master data is, then you have to start thinking in terms of all the workflows that actually touch master data, whether it be pricing changes or approved supplier changes or end of lifing a component or a part, right? New suppliers, unblocking suppliers. There are many, many of these processes which take time and cost money. And before you know it, you suddenly have a very expensive overall master data management process. And this is something that it can easily be brought down by a factor with some good approaches. And then another thing that we have seen is, business users tend to be, if you're in engineering or a supplier, you are at an arm's length when you're dealing with master data, right? It's an Excel or email that is generally used to provide that information to, the teams that are actually handling master data for SAP, right? So this creates quite a bit of an disjoint between the groups that are responsible for master data and the teams that are handling master data. Another thing, unsupported, when we talk about traditional approaches that are falling short, traditional approaches are reasonably good when you're handling with what we call main master data domains, right? Material, customer, supplier, maybe a little bit on equipment, but we have not seen very good approaches even for equipment. But if you think of all the other types of master data workflows, you have at least 60, 70% more that are just not supported in any manner. Right here, people have to actually go back into SAP and work with it, right? So this creates quite a bit of what we call unsupported master data processes that go back to adding inefficiencies and cycle times, and they become expensive, right? So this is where we see a lot of room for improvement from an SAP master data management perspective. And one of the things that we have done is we've provided a fairly robust workflow engine that is very integrated with SAP and many other solutions. We've tried to address this problem using workflows, and I'll quickly cover that in the next few slides. And following that, Elizabeth is going to cover the case study with Smart Global, how they are using workflows to support master data management. Okay. So one of the things that we've done is expressed all of the master data workflows as cross-functional workflows, which means the actual stakeholders that are involved in master data management are part of the process, and they are actively involved, provide information, make decisions, and also simplify. The workflows themselves come with a lot of governance features so that there's errors are minimized or eliminated completely, and then we, as part of the workflow, one of the things that we do is we integrate directly. It becomes natural part of the workflow activities, right? So when information needs to be extended to a plant, it is automatically connecting to the system, SAP in this case, and creates the extension for the plant. So what this allows is, in addition to traditional master data objects, you can support all kinds of different master data elements using this approach, right? Create bombs and create the config materials for, variant configurations. Those are all not supported in the traditional master data approaches, which is you create a master data and distribute it to the destination systems, right? So this gives you enormous amount of flexibility and practically eliminates a lot of the what we call non-value added work out of this process. And as a result, it is not uncommon for us to see what has been taking 30 plus days, 300 to 500. This is one of the most, the example to the side is creating a new material and extending it to different plants and sales areas and valuation types, and, adding units of measure and, creating bombs and things like that, right? That whole process can be very, very long and extensive and expensive as well, right? So the workflow-driven approach has really cut down the time as well as the cost. And because the data is, the stakeholders are involved and providing the data once, the actual time it takes to interact and provide the information is also minimized significantly. And based on our work, we've kind of worked with several SAP customers now, and there is definitely a common set of workflows that are universally applicable. I would say these cover maybe 70 up to 85% of all the workflow needs around master data management, right? And the bulk of it, much of it actually happens around material masters. And if as a way, we can have a library of these workflows, it becomes much, much more simpler to handle these kinds of, or reduce the overall burden of master data management on the whole organization. So with that, what I will do is hand the mic over to Elizabeth, Elizabeth will cover their experience with workflows and how they're handling master data as part of workflows. Okay, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. So I will give you an overview about Smart Global Holding. So we have diverse product lines across computing, memory, and LED lighting solution, and providing engineering-driven technology solution for specialty and markets as well as services. Smart Global Holdings has around 4,000 employees. The headquarters is in California. We have manufacturing lines in California, in Arizona, as well as in Asia and South America. Facilities across the globe. The brands are Smart Memory, Cree LED, and Penguin Solutions, which is IPS. I'm part of Penguin Edge, which is part of Penguin Solution Business, and we provide deep expertise in embedded system designs and development for smart devices, retail, medical, telecom, military, and industrial products, as well as service. So as I mentioned, we have facilities all over the world. So one of the reasons why we decided to go with this solution is we needed a system which is very reliable, since we are using it 24/7. So we needed to make sure that it's always online for Malaysia and the US. The reason why we needed a system was when we got bought by Smart Global Holdings, we needed to move from Oracle to SAP, and our current SAP system does not have a change management module. So we went with the PLM solution. It was driven by our processes. So currently we are supporting everything from MPI to sustaining to end of lifing. So all our product management life cycles are in our PLM system, and it's integrated into SAP as well as other applications we are currently using. The system coverage, so it's our cFlow and Oracle and SAP. We set up a lot of processes because I'm a big fan of automizing a lot of things to avoid error and also have shorter workflows and implement things quickly. So just to give you an overview what we implemented so far. So we have our change management, orders, as well as post-process for the factory. CCNs is component change notices, part change notification. As all you know, supply chain is going crazy over the last years. So we need to ensure we have a very stable process. Release notices for new products, part number creation. We are importing BOMs from spreadsheets as well. We are pushing BOMs into SAP. We also have processes to do uploads in bulk, so it's faster and easier for approvers. We have all our documentations in PLM as well as data sheets, and we also have customer notification. It's also automated, so every time we are changing or we want to change a custom product, the customer gets automatically notified. So this is our Launchpad. These are the processes I just mentioned. So it's very easy for the users to log in and select what they needed to view or to submit. So it's a very nice overview of all the processes we have implemented. Chris, do you want to speak to that slide?
Yeah, absolutely. So what Elizabeth has highlighted here are the number of processes that are in place with zFlow, right, to support the beginning to end type of product lifecycle. One of the important things as part of these workflows is handling master data. So these workflows actually, if you look at this example of new part number request, it is directly, the workflow is connected to SAP once the cross-functional teams provide the information for new part number setup. And we'll look at some of the demos in our system and how a similar setup may work, right? Once the request is approved, reviewed, it's all validated. The workflow actually creates a material using a reference material in SAP, and depending upon the information that is provided, it might also create a bill of material in SAP directly, right? So there is no more of, as part of a a request, somebody having to go to SAP, it all happens seamlessly and smoothly as part of the business process. Same thing happens here in new part manufacturer request. It's slightly different because it's a component. It also needs approved manufacturer vendor information. So creates a material and updates the vendor manufacturer for that material. The engineering change orders are quite, it's also a workflow that is implemented, and it's quite intricate in the type of work it does. But part of that is also to update a material to a higher revision or creating a new material altogether and creating and updating BOMs. So in the case of end of life here, we just go ahead and update and set the last ship dates, etc., for the end of life information and close it out, right? So in all of these workflows, the cross-functional teams don't think of master data as something that is separate. It happens naturally as part of the workflow. And with that, I'll give, these are some examples, right? The screens where the workflows proactively drive coordination and participation of cross-functional teams. So when you have, I think I'll let Elizabeth talk to these.
Okay, so under my activities, you can see if anything is pending for you. So it's very user-friendly. People can log in and see immediately if something is in the queue for approval. And under my processes on the right, you can see if you have submitted a request, you can see where it is, who needs to approve it. So it provides you a very nice overview of a status of the activities. This can be also customized. So we have my data over there. So you can, the PLM tool works as a check-in, check-out. So every time you're changing something, you have to check it out. So under my data, it will show you all the items you have currently checked out and you are working on. Next slide, please. So one of our biggest workflows, or we really worked really hard, is our ECO workflow. We customized it a lot, put in a lot of conditions. As you know, everybody wants to get changes implemented as quick as possible, but we also want to ensure that everybody is aware and they are getting reviewed. So based on the conditions we were able to set in the system, we have a very good turnaround of our cycle times. Like Chris mentioned, the tool automatically pushes changes into SAP, so it really works very reliable. Since we have approvers across the globe, we need to ensure that there is no delay due to time zones or anything. So it looks pretty complex, but it doesn't. Our cycle times are currently around 5 days, which I think is pretty good. And based on the conditions, I know it's very small, the workflow will skip specific steps if they are not needed for a specific ECO type. So I think this tool is super user-friendly and it's easy to participate. I'm actually maintaining our workflows, which sometimes helps to get changes implemented fairly quickly. We have cross-functional teams who are using the PLM tool. So I got a lot of good feedback from all our business units that this tool is very user-friendly. The biggest fan I'm of is because you can customize it. As of today, time is very critical. Everything needs to happen fast. So you can automate it, optimize it as often as you want. It's like I said, it's very easy to do. Even if you have changes in your operation or the company, they can be addressed immediately. You don't have to wait for your IT team to do anything. So it really helped us in the past to implement changes fairly quickly. The system is very reliable. As I mentioned, we have people across the globe, so we need to ensure it's accessible 24/7. So so far, we did not have any problems or issues. The integration to SAP as a system is also working very good. We are pushing data into SAP and also from SAP into PLM to ensure that all the data is synchronized. Our PLM system is our master, so we are not making changes in SAP itself. Like Chris mentioned, master data is very important. All our master data is in PLM, so we can, it's easily to view for everybody. You know, when you have SAP, you have to train people. Sometimes it's not visible where attributes are. I think PLM, you show the team once, and it's fairly easy to navigate through the system since all the templates looks the same. We automated a lot. Cycle times have been reduced over the last 3 years. We have fairly quickly with part number creation. That is one important thing we realized with the supply chain, that you have to create part numbers super fast, because if you don't react immediately, they can be gone, somebody else buys it. So we have a process in place which pushes part numbers in like 5 minutes into the system with approval. We also customize reports. That was also a very important thing for us, to be proactive with component shortages. When we moved into PLM, we also had several reports to cross-check the data loads to make sure everything is in place, no data is missing. And we also use this data to do several process improvements, especially cycle times for ECOs and CCNs. Workflows, I'm a big fan of how easy it can be set up. You can set up your conditions, you can update, maintain your templates, you can set up new accounts. It's really very easy to do. And I can't, you know, I'm with us, I don't know if everybody has a problem, but IT is always very busy. So having somebody in engineering or who's using the tool can make changes, I think it's very, very usable and helps to get things implemented quickly.
Right. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks for the overview and also providing the details behind how you're using workflows to handle product lifecycle management, as well as master data as part of the workflows itself. So if you have any questions for Elizabeth, please type in. We will forward the questions to Elizabeth so they can be answered. In the meantime, what I will do is move on to the next section, which is we want to also showcase, how these workflows actually operate, as well as how they integrate with SAP and the various features. Okay. What I've done is broke the demo down, and it should be done in about 15-20 minutes. So we'll have the last 10 minutes for Q&A. And keep in mind, this would be a fairly high level. So to give a full-fledged overview of the solution for master data management, you may need a little bit more, around an hour or so. But if you need, we can set up a separate session. But what I will do for this demo is really show you how business stakeholders are the drivers of these master data workflows. How integration to SAP is set up as just another workflow activity. It happens naturally. We'll also give you a quick example of how governance as part of workflows, so that master data is always fully provided, as well as any errors eliminated. Cover slightly on how you can use BAPIs, business APIs in SAP to support some of the unsupported master data scenarios, like for pricing or MOMs and CARES specifications and so on. So you can do that using BAPI-based integration. And then I'll really quickly give an overview of how you can use different workflows to support needs of different types, data types, different regions, divisions, etc. Okay. With that, what I will do is log into the system here. Let me make sure that I'm logging in. So what you'll see, everything in zFlow is available through the web browser. So everyone that comes in, is coming into the web browser. I would say majority of our customers also use Azure Active Directory or Okta single sign-on solutions to come in. So there is no real need for its own login requirements, right? So they come in through a single sign-on. So when you come in here as a stakeholder or someone that is responsible for master data, the first thing you will see is, as a stakeholder, you will see a lot of activities that you are expected to do. So it's what Elizabeth was covering about. These are all the workflow activities, master data workflow activities that have been assigned to you, right? If you have to create any new workflows, you can actually go through the Launchpad, and you will see a full library that we've actually developed over time that are available, the 80-90% scenarios that we talk about, right? Whether it be maintenance to, materials. As you can see, materials have a lot of scenarios, from creating new materials to copying materials and end of life. The full life cycle of a material is provided. The one thing that you need to keep in mind is, you have while there's a library of workflows, you can also design your own. And more often than not, our customers actually design their own, because there are some very unique ways people handle master data, and there are different industry requirements and so on. So you can support that. So let me take an example. What I'm going to do is use this NPI process for multiple materials, and how it actually brings in people together, coordinates the process, as well as integrates with SAP using the BAPIs that I was talking about. So I'm interested in creating a couple of new materials. So what I can do is go ahead and start it. And I will select Model X program, and we are ready to promote it to design stage, right? So the moment you're ready to provide to design stage, you can actually start to create materials in SAP, because it's the process of getting ready. And we are interested in creating 2 today, okay? And as a requester, the system automatically guides you through, hey, you don't need to provide any catalog numbers. All you should do is provide a description. And that's how this workflow is set up, right? And before I go into filling in this description, I want to show you how the workflow is set up. The workflow is designed so that it's first the requester initiates the workflow, provides descriptions, but the material master group actually here is the one that gets the catalog number. Okay, these are externally generated material numbers. So the material number uses the UPC codes to fill in the catalog numbers. And once that is done, the system automatically, depending upon the type of material selected, it creates the basic view in SAP, right? And following that, the manufacturing team, the sales and finance provide relevant information. Okay, so let's go through that process here. As a requester, all I'm going to do is request, hey, I want to create this SKU. It will be 06 and 07. Okay, save changes. And of course, you can also add materials, attachments, everything that is, you can import data to create this information, import from Excel. So there are quite a few other facilities to do this, but here, let's keep it simple. I've given the dimensions. I want it by, let's say, next week. Done. And the material type is, I want to create the work, okay? And I'll submit that. Okay, so if you now notice, the workflow is actually gone to this material master group. So this is where what we do when you're defining workflows is you describe, what are the different roles that are involved in setting up the master data for the materials, like from lifecycle planning, manufacturing, material master group. And the actual people that are responsible for that. So here you have a couple of options. One is you can predetermine as part of workflow design who should play a role, or the workflow also gives you the option of selecting people who can play it the moment you initiate a workflow. So both options are pretty relevant because sometimes you have to decide on the fly who is the right person to do that instead of using established teams, people that are ready. So here, as a material master group, I would have gotten, so since the performer is Chris Goropati, if you look at the members here, this is this guy here. That's my actual email. And what I will do is get an email like this saying, hey, this email notification sent to you by admin to complete this workflow activity, get catalog number for the process with the following message. So you have some basic information about it, program, and it gives you a link saying select here to perform that activity. When they select it, it puts them directly into this activity and they know exactly what to fill, right? So here, my only goal is to assign, get from the UPC catalog. We have done all the numbers that are relevant. Okay, and I'm going to submit these. And we've actually, for some customers, we have created a library of these UPC codes, and the workflow actually uses those numbers as more and more materials are created. So people don't even have to select it or type it. It just picks directly. In some variations, it asks SAP to provide internal sequences, right? For example, for HAWA and URSA, ROH, raw materials, people may use internal sequences. So you can apply all kinds of variations to these workflows. How do you want to do it? So here, let's keep it simple here. I'm done with this, and I can provide some other business information that may be relevant for the business process itself. So here we're done. At this point, as MMG person, I have no real, I cannot see or provide much information for those additional sets of information relevant for different views within SAP, right? Purchasing, I'm not part of that. So that will be done by somebody else. So here, as a material data person, I've provided the catalog numbers and I complete this activity. So at this point, if you look at this workflow, it said create material in SAP. The system automatically connected to SAP and created these two different materials. So if I now go to SAP and say, I want to check those two materials, let's see what is there. To SKU 6, let's pick 6. So essentially, there is nothing but basic data, right? So we've created the description, assigned some default basic units of measure, and that's it. We have just taken the material numbers, and now we can continue with the process. Okay, so here, as a plant engineer, I'm now going to perform these activities as an admin, so I don't want to log in as a manufacturing engineer. You could also do that, then you will see it. So I could go ahead and Fremont, right? I'm going to say this plant is Fremont. I'm okay with the default purchasing groups and locations, storage locations. I'll set it up and complete the activity. Okay. Now this is actually finance one is having to select, what is the information for sales org, right? So it actually guides people through. So I'm going to take the sales org representative, save it, and complete it. So as far as valuation is concerned, so if you look at the workflow now, we are at sales. The finance one is the person that is coming in. So let me log in to you as finance one. So if you look at our members, So finance one is the person that has just completed. So if I log in as finance one, I just want to show you how it looks. Okay, so they will see that, hey, you know, there is a workflow that is happening, and you are expected to provide the information. So here, finance is actually what is providing this information. So this is the view of finance, right? You know, they don't have very many activities except the ones that are here. So this is the last one that we got, right? 223 LNX Mat 0081. So here as finance, I can just go ahead and I can't still see any evaluation, but I can see the rest of it. And the rest of it is all grayed out, if you noticed, except for the sales related and channel related information. So we're good with that. And then let's say complete it. Now it is with costing. Okay, costing is also assigned to finance so that it actually shows up here. What we're going to do is provide the moving average price and the standard prices. 1, 2, 3. The valuation area, valuation classes are fine. You know, we are good with the rest. Everything is still dark. Now the valuation. So what you can see is that, you know, the workflow actually goes around and involves people and provides them guidance into what information they should be providing as part of this workflow. Okay, so I'm done with finance and I'm going to complete provided the costing, I'll complete this activity here. So now what the system has done is actually it's taken that additional pieces of information from manufacturing, sales, and costing and actually updated SAP. Right, so if I now go ahead and open the same material, you'll see all the other information, okay? So you have like the sales orgs and outputs, right? So the purchasing information is also set in place. This is a finished good, so there's not much there. But in terms of sales tax, everything that is related to finished goods, now, you know, we are continuing to add. So what we have done here is, so I'm going to log back in as an admin. Okay, so let's look at our workflows. 81 is where we are. So what we have done is really broken down into multiple pieces of information, right? So we've now added those, gotten hold, you know, proactively got people involved. They provided that relevant information, and now we have updated SAP. So you can actually use these BAPIs, and the way it works here is we've described all the external systems. So zFlow works uniformly with all SAP solutions because it is using APIs as the primary method to connect, right? So whether it is HANA or ECC, when it's trying to support integration through workflows, they all look similar. It's just that how the APIs are described may be different and how they are connected to workflows. So here it's connected to several different SAP systems, you know, also to Salesforce. We also connect a lot to PLM systems for materials and so on, right? So it's connected, and as part of the workflow, what it is doing is it uses these interfaces which connect a workflow and its information to a API within SAP, right? So we've so far used create material. So if I look at create material, it is nothing but it is calling the standard SAP APIs. You know, these are published and maintained by SAP across multiple versions, right? ECC to S/4HANA, and passing on the information from the workflow to the API, what it is requiring. So what this allows you to do, this approach, as opposed to traditional, you know, I will send you a document, An API-based approach allows you a lot of flexibility in how you can structure your master data. Just to give you an example here, so there are times when you might want to really just to give you the level of complexity that you can handle. So this type of workflow where you're really changing small pieces of information, you can really break it down into updating materials, updating POs, assign commodity for material vendor. So it almost becomes accessible in a very granular fashion, SAP. Okay, so that's the major advantage of handling using workflows, getting the right people involved, and integration as a workflow activity where you have all the flexibility that you want on how you want to conduct your business process. The other thing that I also wanted to cover is, one of the things, the goal of workflow, there are two things. One is to minimize all non-value added activity, right? So here you've seen example of once the information is in, we are able to get people involved. They provide what is relevant for them, right? Information, and we directly interoperate with SAP to create or update that material. As part of that, one of the things that is very common is, hey, we need to enforce some rules on the data. Right. So here I'm going to use the example of a new vendor creation. So a lot of people may be aware of creating vendors. Vendors also can be split into different activities. Like there are different people providing different pieces of information. So if you look at it, there's a payment transaction, general data, company code, could be either purchasing or finance. That may be determining different people, right? So here in this case, for example, we want some requirements. In this case, if it is an EU country, right, we need IBAN and bank key information, most definitely, right? So when people make those types of determinations, you want to enforce the rules saying, okay, make sure that people provide that. So when I save it, it's actually giving following fields cannot be blank, right? IBank or bank key are required now, right? So it automatically puts those two as the required fields. And those types of rules, regardless of the complexity, can be directly implemented into these workflows so that the right information and the complete information is actually making it into the source system. One of the things that we've seen is in SAP, especially, people have a lot of data quality issues. Some special procurement key is this, that, somehow it because people are entering it directly there, those checks and balances have not happened before, right? So to eliminate that, you'd want to just minimize errors. In manufacturing, the concept is called poka-yoke, right? So which is eliminate error. So these types of rules can be set up within the workflow activities or workflows so that the correct appropriate information makes it into SAP. So if you use this enough, it is very likely that your data quality will be almost perfect. Data completeness quality, what they consider it to be master data accuracy quality, right? Assessments. This is one way to minimize all of that. Or completely eliminate. And you can describe these rules very, very easily. We provide a rule engine as well as something that you can build on top of forms using very simple functions or JavaScript. Okay, and they become dynamic. And then, of course, one of the things that you will see is a lot of customers ask us, hey, we have a lot of custom functions that we wrote, RFCs. Can we use those when we are working with master data workflows or any other workflows? And the answer is yes. So here is an example of create vendor master in SAP. As a matter of fact, there is no such thing in SAP as create vendor master. It's just not there, right? There is no established BAPI function. So what we've done is created a small wrapper function that actually takes the information here in the workflow, including everything, including partner functions and so on, and creates that. And that is actually a custom RFC, right? So if I look at external interface, right? So create vendor will be a function. Let me show you. ZFM vendor master create. So this is actually a custom RFC, not one that is published by SAP, right? So if you have a lot of custom functions that need, are usable in master data processes or otherwise, you can actually call those directly from these workflows and pass information back and forth. The workflows can also take information. A lot of times, when the vendor number is created, just to give you an example here, you've seen very standard SAP type of workflows. In some of the examples that Elizabeth was talking about, those are very, very business process workflows. So this is a good example of a business process workflow where they're onboarding a supplier. And supplier onboarding can be a very elaborate process. Part of that is you also have to handle creating of a vendor in SAP and send the vendor information back to the vendor and provide them with RFP documents and so on, update some other data in another system. So all of this can be done as a business process and very, very naturally handle the master data creation or update processes. The other thing that I also wanted to cover, and we're going to do this using a slide here, is most of our customers have lots of divisions and multiple SAP instances and support different regions of the world, and you have to accommodate different languages, different data coming in different languages. The application itself is a different language. All of those can be done very, very easily with these workflows. So you can create a what we call a language pack to go with the workflow and describes everything in the specific languages that you want, that people want to use. You can also input, a lot of Asian languages require, support in terms of when people are providing information. All of this can be done. But in addition, you can use the variations of the workflow. For example, there is like say 20% variation between finished goods and HRSA or HAWA materials, right? So you can take an existing workflow and create a variation of that, and then that can be used with slightly different rules. So you have a lot of flexibility on how you want to support your businesses and needs and requirements that can vary depending upon the type of material or type of business or type of plant and so on. And it's very, very easy to support these workflows, make changes, as Elizabeth was suggesting, right? So fairly useful. And in terms of our experience has been, the results are, fairly dramatic in terms of the improvements that people see when you adopt a digital workflow. And it can, we've seen improvements across the board with and without existing MDM solutions. Some of our customers have MDG and Informatica or TIBCO and still have the need for a workflow-based approach, primarily for several of the gaps, not only the gaps, but generally make it all smooth. Okay, so with that, what we'll do is get into Q&A, and we'll look at all the Q&A, answer as many questions as possible. And if there are any questions that we are not able to answer within the time limit that we have here, we will answer it via email or even perhaps send a note if we know who the question came from. In case you're interested, many of our customers came through via free trials and free pilots. So please feel free to reach us. And suggest what could be the next step if you're interested in free trial or free pilot. What we will do after this session is over is send the materials. It'll probably take a day because Zoom does take some time to create the webinar recording and send it to us. We'll send it over, but our contact information is there. If you have any additional questions, would like to have a deeper dive into the overall approach and the solution, we would be more than happy to set up a separate session. So with that, let's look at the questions that we have. Does this vendor creation process is aligned with the BP process we have in S/4HANA? Yes. So we have the vendor creation process working both with ECC as far as S/4HANA, and there are two different approaches, as you had suggested, because you do have to create a business partner in the case of S/4HANA. In terms of workflow, it still looks the same. Just to give you an example, one workflow here is actually supporting two different systems at the same time. One is ECC, the other one is S/4HANA, right? And if you look at this workflow here, it creates, it's described as two different steps, one to create in the S4 client, and then the other one in the ECC client. Same information. So since we're using BAPIs, yes, it works uniformly across both. The same question again. How compatible is this with S/4HANA, given that customers and vendors are business partners with different roles? Yes, it is. When you are creating a business partner in SAP, obviously you have the option, depending upon how your configuration works. The vendor number and the customer numbers can be different. So that's how you're going to be setting it up. Or you can use the same business partner as the main number for that partner, right? Whether it be a customer or a vendor. Yes, we do support that. And few of our customers are actually using S/4HANA. So and also have a combination of ECC and S/4HANA in their landscapes, and using the same the zFlow workflows to connect to both of them. Key enhancements are in the product development roadmap and user interface modernization. Yes, we are continually updating the solution, both from a UI versus capabilities, integration adapters. We're continuously adding to things like Coupa and Team Center and Windchill. So that's a library that people always get. We release once a quarter, and it is updatable. And it's a fairly seamless update. But you can choose whether you want to update it or not. In terms of search, we do have a fairly robust search embedded within. It's a free text as well as advanced search options, right? Quick search works on free text-oriented search, and advanced search is primarily around using query parameters to get that. Okay. So if I look at it, so you can configure these how it should be done. We leverage next question is, does this comply with CGMP? Yes. As a matter of fact, we have customers that are in the certain medical industry sectors that use this. And because the workflows are extremely detailed in terms of how they keep track of information, what is happening within the workflow in terms of logs and how the connections to SAP, etc., what information is sent. You have a very, very strong support for this GMP type of requirements. Can you tie ECR numbers to these workflows? Yes, in engineering change, it is not uncommon to have ECR numbers, especially materials. If you're using PLM in SAP, you can get the change number from SAP and use that to update materials. So you'd have to, for that, however, you have to configure SAP as the change, to support changes and lifecycle management and engineering change records. Okay. There is another question around lots of template materials to default extensions for plans. Did you share how this copies records to generate new records or extensions? Yes. So that is one of the most common workflows, which is when we are creating a new material to use an existing material. And a lot of times people create what are called reference materials for different plants and different types. And we pass on that reference material number as a way to create a new material. So the copy to create is a very common approach. So it will be material to copy, and the new material uses the material to copy as the reference to create the new material. And it could be both completely brand new material or even to an extension to a specific plant. Does zFlow integrate with ATTP? I'm assuming the question is about APO ATTP, or with APO, you can connect. We have connected zFlow to EWM and ATP APO, where the master data will still use RFCs and BAPIs of those respective solutions to update or create material, create data there. As long as it is NetWeaver, so we use what is called JCO, and all NetWeaver solutions support Java connectors, and through Java connectors, the BAPIs and RFCs. So yes. How many records can be imported from a spreadsheet in a multiple new materials request? You can, what you see here, you can, as many as you need, the answer is. However, for reasons of performance, UI performance, there is a setting in the system that shows only 500 or 1,000 at a time. But when you do import using Excel, people have imported like 10,000, 20,000 materials, right? So, however, you will only see 500 at a time because of this thing, because otherwise we have to implement paging on these items here. But there is no limit to how many you can import in a spreadsheet. Is the tool capable of allowing supplier maintained vendor records? That's exactly why one of the core use cases of zFlow is, because it is supply chain oriented workflows. You can let suppliers manage their own submit information from the portal. So let's to give you an idea. So if you look at suppliers here, there will be a list of them here, right? So this supplier here can log into zFlow, and when they log in, okay, so let me, depending upon how you configure, they may be able to see quite a few or not a lot. So here, we haven't exposed anything, but you can let them initiate and create parts, etc., within zFlow, and accept everything through a workflow. So they can also change their profiles. A lot of times, supplier master data can be managed by suppliers themselves. Cyber security controls. So most of our SAP customers run it on their own, so it is, because it needs to be close to SAP, they put the solution within their what we call virtual private clouds or internal networks. And there is quite a bit of security. We do support some very sensitive our customers. So, and from adding SSL to secure databases to SSO, additional options, how you can control information roles. There is quite a bit of flexibility on how you can handle. Do you have options for mass updates? Yes, you can use the same API-based approach with multiple materials. So a good example here is you want to update pricing for multiple, right? So you are actually, you can have like 20. And of course, you would be importing all of this information and using Excel, but it does support updates, pricing or anything that can be updatable. You can do mass approaches. Okay. Change history tracking and all would be a system user. Yes, and you can also use if the user also has the person that is performing the activity. Let me put it that way. The person that is performing the activity actually has an SAP logon. The system can also use that as the identity to work with SAP. So it doesn't have to be just a system user. So that way you can pick and choose, which makes sense. In general, in zFlow has a lot more users than SAP has generally because of the workflow nature. And sometimes, people come in and out. Sometimes there are guest users. So it doesn't necessarily require, but the key performers, if they have master data teams, if you want to use zFlow, use their identity for SAP, it can do that too. Okay. So it also provide some information on change logs, audit trails, reports. As I was telling you, that it has a very, very extensive logging capability, both from a change perspective as well as who's doing what. So you can see this here, and each workflow has its own log. The system has its own log, right? So there is quite a few in terms of what is happening. You can shut it off at the level of a user, at the level of a process for the whole system. So everything that you're doing is logged. Access control, we do provide a fairly sophisticated user group role at the system level. That is one way to handle it. And then at each of these workflows also have, at each activity, you can implement access control. And you've seen that example where the person that is doing purchasing may not see anything in finance, right? And that's all can be done, configured as part of workflow design by your business analyst. So it's very, very rich. Yes.
Can you talk about some reporting?
Yeah, so a couple of things about reporting. One is we actually have, is an internal reporting capability, which is generally generated by the system itself. A good example here is new material request. Okay, so here, as you can see, if I look at, I want to understand the cycle times of, how things are happening, right? So what I'm going to do is select the process template and see, how and this is very, very important, that at a workflow level, you want to understand, what are some of the, bottleneck activities. This is a workflow level reporting, okay? The other thing that we do provide is a reporting engine internally. Select a reporting engine that, let me show you using this one. Your business analysts that know a little bit of SQL can define their own. Okay, so they can right? So they can do those kinds of things here and get all the information that you want from the reports here. The other option that many of our customers take advantage of is it can also connect. Let me show you. If you have Power BI or Tableau or some other things, you can directly connect that to the database here. Okay, free trial ended, so I guess it's not. So let me see. I guess so. It can provide the same set of information, and is of course since all of the data is accessible, you can definitely get a lot more richer in terms of what analysis you want to run on it. Okay, both options are there, which is you take advantage of some analytics that we generally generate as part of the data set that we have, or you can describe your own reports using SQL and run those reports here. So both, or connect directly everything to Power BI. So all three options are being used by our customers right now. And if your organization already has a lot of users on Power BI, that's what we recommend. Connect Power BI to this data source and then generate your needed requirements. Okay, and the last one is, can we connect ZMDM with SAP Analytics Cloud? Yeah, if so, the database that ZMDM runs is MySQL. If and any respectable analytics cloud should connect to MySQL, and it's the world's most popular database, right? And from what we have seen, Power BI does it, Tableau does it. Although we have not connected or allowed SAP Analytics Cloud to connect to it, it should be able to do it. Is there data masking available to protect view of sensitive data? Yes, we do have sensitive information that can be hidden or only accessible. It almost uses like a password type of approach handling that data. Okay, and you can also use hashing encryption at the field level, at the data, the full database. It could be encrypted, or particular fields are encrypted. In general, we take encryption for many things automatically applied. It'll encrypt the data. Okay, so I want to take this time to thank you for joining this session. Again, we will send all the recordings and answers to all of these questions as well as part of the materials that we are going to send back. But if you have any additional questions or would like to have a deeper dive session, please feel free to reach out to us, and we will support. We'll set up and coordinate that. Okay. Thank you again. With that, we will pause the session and stop the recording. Thank you. Have a great day.